baseball talk with Karl Ravech. Does a great job with ESPN. Of course, host of Baseball Tonight. Ravi, good to talk to you, my friend. How you been?
I'm good, Rich. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing well. What is this going to be, your 22nd, 23rd season hosting?
Well, I got there in '93, and I started dabbling in it in '93. '95 sort of was full time. So I keep looking at it. So the 25th year there, I've been involved with it probably 23 or 4. Yeah.
Wow, that's
the
incredible.
Baseball side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, among other duties. I did not notice, and I looked this up last night. I wasn't aware. So this year, all 30 teams are going to be in action to play on the same day, in opening day, and I guess that's the first time it's happened since '68. So that's a little variety, a little something new this year. We got the All-Star game in Washington for the first time since '69. Yeah. You got the Twinkies playing the Indians in a 2-game set in San Juan, Puerto Rico in April. So, listen, I'm ready to go. I mean, baseball to me, it just can't come here fast enough. I'm curious, when you look at some of the teams that made the splash in the offseason with the Yankees and Stanton and the Cubs with Darvish and the Red Sox with Martinez, kind of handicap those 3 teams for me. Start with the AL East and the Yanks and the Red Sox. Where do you see both these teams when it's all said and done?
Running away with the division. I don't think that the other 3 teams in that division are even in the same conversation as those 2. So it's the separation. I think the rest of the division will, with all due respect to the Blue Jays and the Orioles and the Rays, just don't have the talent, and they won't be able to compete. So those 2 teams, I think, run away a little bit and hide in that division. I think the other team that's made a significant upgrade are the Angels in the West. I really think they're a phenomenal team that when their lineup plays all together and Ohtani DHs and Pujols plays first, stretches their line, it's ridiculous. So I think those 3 teams are the ones that in the American League have made the biggest difference.
Ohtani, to me, is going to be an interesting case study just to watch. I mean, because you're talking about a guy that can not only throw some heaters, from all accounts, great pitcher, but also a great hitter. I mean, it's a rarity. Like, I'll have to stay up later to watch these games when you guys have them.
Right.
But it's right. And to me, it's not a sideshow. It's not a freak show. I mean, by all accounts, this kid is just as talented as they come. I mean, are you guys excited to get a little coverage on this to watch, because you've got potentially a guy that can maybe win 20 games and maybe hit, 15 to 25 homers this year?
Thank you. I think the jury is out on him. I do think that anybody who's ever seen him will confirm what everybody is talking about in his ability to hit, to drive the ball, and to pitch. And again, there is zero comparison between little leaguers and guys that are in the major leagues. But I will say, if you grow up in Japan playing baseball, the fundamentals of the game are stressed way more than they are even in this country. And every aspect of what the 12-year-old learns and takes with him, through their careers, this guy demonstrates. I mean, it is an absolutely flawless pitching delivery. His approach at the plate is exactly what you want from somebody. He clearly has shown that the big stage, while he may have selected Anaheim, it's still Los Angeles. It's still the major leagues, and his desire to go play in that indicates that's not going to rattle him either. So as much as there are uncertainties, he seems to check many of the boxes in a really positive way. And when you have Kinsler in that lineup, and Trout, obviously, and Pujols, it really is as deep a lineup as there is in baseball. So what Mike Scioscia does with it will be great. And I think from Major League Baseball's perspective, the idea that you have teams in major markets, all with high expectations, you'll have to stay up late, but we used to do that all the time when the Giants were competitive, and now that the Dodgers are competitive and the Angels appear to be competitive, we got West Coast baseball that's really, really relevant.
Let's go back, stick with the AL East for a second. You look at that lineup with the Yankees and Judge, Stanton, and Sanchez. I mean, on paper, it looks like they can score 1,000 runs. To me, it's... even if Judge takes that step back, right, if he hits 240, 245, I don't know if he's going to put together a career year like last year, but with the addition of Stanton, you got Sanchez, you got Didi. Again, that's still a very potent offense. I mean, that to me, on paper, I'm not going to say it's the 98 Yanks, but this is a team that's going to score a ton of runs.
Well, they will. I mean, you watch the Yankees play and you see Judge pop out, you see Stanton hit a ground ball. You are reminded that you don't get a hit every time you're up, but you're also reminded when you think about the lineup that they could put out there from a pitcher's perspective, it's a pain in the butt. You just realize that number 6, 7, 8 is as is as dangerous as 1, 2, and 3. I think in talking with Aaron and some other guys from the Yankees front office as recently as this morning, there's still a belief that Gary Sanchez may have the best year of all those dudes, and that's with Stanton, the MVP from last year who hit 59 homers. That's with Judge. That's with a healthy Greg Bird. That's with a shortstop who could probably hit 30 home runs. There is no denying that the potential for that lineup is as good as perhaps we've ever seen with regards to total number of home runs and total numbers of runs scored. So from Boone's perspective and from the Yankees, you know, when you're sitting there wondering how you're going to put the order together as the biggest conundrum, and do we separate Judge and Stanton and let Bird hit in between them, and where does Hicks go? Like, you know, those are the problems of the rich. Those are problems of the wealthy. Those are problems of the famous.
They're good problems to have.
They're great. They're great problems to have. But again, you know, the same way the Giants made their moves, you think about Bumgarner. Look, they'll go as far as their pitching will take them, and that's, you know, there's no doubt that's the X factor and key for the Yankees and every other team in baseball.
It might be a loaded question here, but when you look at the Red Sox and the Yankees, and you look at the two new skippers in Cora and Boone respectively, I mean, out of those two, who's got more pressure on them?
That's a good question. I don't look at it. I mean, personally, I don't look at it in terms of pressure, because I do think, you know, the first year, if not two. And maybe in New York and Boston, it's a little different. You kind of get a year. But look, they're both so smart baseball-wise. Boone has probably a little more outgoing personality with the media and is able to strike relationships. But Cora is excellent at that. So to me, when you're qualified and when you're good and you're surrounded by the talent that they are, there are only certain things you can control. And I think the things that they can control, they're not going to screw up. And I think their coaches around them are enough of a security blanket. I think having, you know, Rothschild there and having Josh Bard, I mean, I'm sure most people in New York don't even know who the hell Josh Bard is. You get a chance to sit and chat with Josh Bard, you walk away thinking, my goodness, I just spoke to Terry Francona as far as his personality and a sense of humor. At the same time, I spoke with like A.J. Hinch and his analytics and sabermetrics background. He is amazing what Bard can do. Cora's coaching staff is the same way. So to me, if I, you know, got on a bicycle, is there pressure to ride it? Not really. I know how to do it. I'm not worried about either of them. I don't think that pressure is going to be a problem. Now, if you told me they went to a team that was expected to win World Series and didn't have talent, well, that's kind of an unfair expectation.
Sure.
They both know what the expectation is in Boston and New York, and barring injuries and assuming performance levels are the same, they'll both be in the playoffs, and then we'll see what happens.
Let's switch gears. Karl Ravech from ESPN Baseball Tonight joining us. Ravi, you look at the NL. We'll get to the team in our backyard, the Phillies, in a moment, but it seems as though the Nats, again, on paper, should be the front runner in the NL East with all the changes with the other teams respectively. How about Atlanta? They got young talent. I do think, look, the Nats, to me, are the only threat in that division, but the Braves maybe shock people. Core position players, they're underrated. You got Freeman, you got young pitching talent. I mean, is this a team that can compete, or at least just kind of hang around, hover around 500 or so, maybe a late push for that potential wild card, or at least second wild card come, say, August?
I think it's hard to do, not only in the division. I think it's hard to do in the league. I will say this, that, talking with Buster Olney this morning on his podcast, when you think about farm systems and having Acuna run around for the Braves, and then the rest of, what John Coppola was able to do before he basically was banned from baseball for life, they have a farm system that is as good as any teams in baseball. But I still think, they are 2 or 3 years away. I think Swanson really needs to kind of prove that he is an accomplished everyday shortstop, because that's what you build around. But I do think within 2 or 3 years they will be in that conversation. I don't think they're in that conversation. I don't think they're close to Washington. I don't think they're close to the Cubs. You always consider what the Cardinals will do. I just think the numbers don't add up for the Braves to be in a conversation for a wild card. By the same token, you're dealing with a Miami Marlins team that's really going to be poor this year,
yep.
and you will be able to get some wins. But no, to answer your question, not this season. I don't think yet. I do think within 2 or 3 seasons, for all that Coppola did wrong, he did leave them with a full cupboard as far as prospects go and talent go.
Yeah,
and that city does. They get knocked for not having good crowds. They get a hell of a stadium now, and that may change.
And we know with the Mets, it always comes down to the health of the pitching staff, and now you got Callaway.
I'm high on the Mets. I like the Mets. I like them every year because of their pitching, and I do like the moves they made.
What do you think about Callaway, though?
Look, if Terry Francona's managing tree is going to yield positive fruit, and I know Mickey, he's different.
He did it with Kluber. Yeah, you're right.
He's different, and I think that type of approach in that organization, look, it worked with Collins 1 year, and I blame nothing on TC. Look, to me, TC was the manager of the year the last couple of years. To get those teams to be even relevant
with all those
December,
injuries, yep.
With all those injuries, like how is he not the manager of the year?
Yeah.
Nobody else was missing 3/4 of their infield and 4/5 of their start. Nobody, and yet he had that team in contention. So if the argument is, the voice and nobody was listening anymore, that's on the players. TC's a hell of a manager, but they have clearly done what most organizations do when you make a managerial change. You go the other direction. Callaway is a relatable guy. That's the current ice cream flavor for managers. Who can relate and who can take the analytics, sabermetrics, and be the conduit between front office and player, make them understand it, and let's see if it works from there. Callaway will be good.
Well, we'll leave you with this. How about the Phillies coming off a 96-loss season? They make a managerial move as well with Kapler. You got young core players, pitching, hitting department. You got Hoskins. You got Nola. They make the move for Santana. I mean, I honestly, to me, I can't figure them out. I don't know, because a couple years ago, it was the starting pitching April, May. Then the arms got taxed. And then they had issues last year with the bullpen. But they've got some players. They've got some core players. Maybe if they make a move for a guy like Arrieta, maybe that gets them over the top. Maybe as a potential wild card, who knows? But what are the expectations with the Phillies this year?
Yeah, I would say they're slightly above like a 500, like 82, 84 wins. The Kapler, that's an interesting one compared to the other managerial hirings. He's a different guy. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And, they have, as an organization, bought all in on Gabe Kapler. And if it, for their sake, I hope it works. They do have, as you say, some good young talent. Who knows if Hoskins can repeat what he did. I thought Herrera kind of took a step back last year. Aaron Nola, I saw through college and covered him, during the run that he had at LSU. They're an interesting team because I do think they're closer than many of the other teams that are expected to peak in the next 2 to 3 years. But by the same token, I'm a little hesitant to think that they have all the pieces in the right places. And I'd love to be sort of proven wrong, but if I were to look at the managers that have been hired this year, my ranking would probably have Gabe like 4th or 5th behind some of the guys we've talked about already. And
why is that, though?
Probably stems from the fact that I don't honestly know him as well as I know the other guys.
Okay.
It does probably stem from the experiences they had as players, both as guys that were utility guys but were in World Series and have rings. I think the Callaway-Francona connection to me is a big one. And I've just heard some things about the way the organization is kind of being run and maybe the way that they are literally like disassociating themselves from great Phillies of the past to turn the page in a sense completely from where they once were. So we'll see. It may work. I'm not sitting here telling you this is a disaster, but I probably have more questions about the Phillies than I do about the other teams. And I'm not. Please, we're not comparing the talent level on the Phillies with the Red Sox
of course
or
not.
the Mets or the Yankees. But We're talking about managers, and they will be sort of judged against each other, and they're all new.
Hey, trust me, you didn't have to add that disclaimer. We know. All right, listen, Ravi.
You gotta be careful, though. Somebody will say, I heard say that.
Well, that's what happens at times. They hear what they want to hear. But, hey, listen, I know we're tight on time. Appreciate a couple moments. We'll certainly talk throughout the season and keep up the great work with baseball tonight. Thanks, Ravi.
I appreciate it.
All right, you got to take care of yourself. Karl Ravech for a couple moments.